Hey, I'm Lauren, certified building biologist, wellness interior designer, and healthy home educator. I want to welcome you to the House Holistics podcast, where we explore how healthy buildings create healthy people. I'll be bringing you life-enhancing conversations with some of the brightest minds in the world. Perhaps your full potential is on the other side of a healthier environment. I'm your host, Lauren Rade. Let's go deeper. Did you start your day off with like 10 different farm chores?
I've not barely got out of the house I woke up in the middle of the night and I could not get back to sleep. So then I wrote an article. I write for Epoch Times. So I wrote an article like in the middle of the night. And then I finally fell back to sleep. And then at 4:30, my baby woke up and was crying and needed to nurse. And so then I nursed her. And then I finally fell back to sleep, but that was like 6 a.m. And then literally I just woke up at 7, like, oh, kids need to get ready for school, blah, 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 blah. And so then I was just like literally 2 seconds before you saw me on here, like braiding hair and saying like, even though mommy's rushing, nothing's more important than you. I love you. Okay. I'll see you in a sec. You go to homeschool because we have a tutor that comes on today. You go to the school building and mommy's going to the podcast room and we're both going to do work and then we're going to see each other later. Like,
I love that. It's so awesome. I hear you though. It probably feels like a lot.
mm, I thought I was past the part of my life about struggling for financial freedom. Like I had got into a really good revenue stream with
Mm-hmm.
Sage in California. I was making really good money. And then I was also selling my restaurants for upwards of between 25 and 31 million when the pandemic hit. And so I went from thinking, oh, I'm done with struggling about money. I've made it. I worked 15 years to build this brand and I have a steady stream of income. I'm financially independent and this is amazing, to losing restaurants through the pandemic and then eventually losing all of them, not getting to sell them because there was no money getting invested into hospitality when the whole
Mm,
liberal sphere was destroying the small business. And so through all that, I'm like starting over at 47 years old with
mm-hmm.
very little income, trying to figure out, how do I get back to stability? And so that is not something I was necessarily prepared for. I thought I was getting ready in 2020. I was getting ready to like not retire because I'm a worker, a mover, a shaker. I was always going to work, but to be not needing to hustle to feed my
Mm-hmm.
family. And I'm what now back at like what feels like the bottom of needing to hustle to feed my family and
Mm-hmm.
starting over a brand new business in a brand new place. Um, so that carries weight with it. It carries um some stress and I'm trying to, be on faith and not allow that to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
cause any stress or sadness, or disconnection from my kids because I'm like, "Oh, I gotta get one more Instagram post so I can sell one more ticket to this or get people to come out for brunch or
Yeah.
like just how do you balance those things of hustling like I had to hustle when I was in my 20s and 30s and had no children to having to hustle like that again with a huge
Mm-hmm.
family?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, wait, I already went through all this. Do I really need to revisit some of this again
I
now?
know, what did I not learn the first time?
Well, Molly, I met you very briefly at Confluence. You had 1,000 different things going on, so you probably don't even remember. But I so appreciate my time at Sovereignty Ranch for that week at Confluence. I mean, I slept in one of the glamping tents and I would go to sleep every night and wake up every morning just listening to the critters and the bugs and the birds. And I came back and I was like, gosh, like we need to be fully living outside all the time. Like, we just need to be camping all the time to get back into that rhythm of nature. So, I so appreciate the container that you created during Confluence, and I'm still thinking about the sourdough pizza. The food is incredible. The mineral pond, check. I mean, I just love what you have created there, and I know it's been an adventure to say, and also you've just been audacious. Like, just from afar, I've observed you being completely brave and audacious and willing to take a risk, and so I just wanna say I so appreciate that about you and, really having this privilege to share this conversation today.
Well, I really appreciate you and for having me on. And I hope that more people want that experience. And then I don't have to worry about money because people are coming here and they're sharing abundance to be inside of this container and experience what I've built. And what I've built is large and is exciting and
Mhm,
is feeling overwhelming at this moment. But all it really needs for it not to be overwhelming is the community to support it. And what is interesting to think about is we all want cool things in our life. We want cool things in the world, but literally we are the the drivers of that. So if we want there to be farm to table restaurants on a farm with glamping experiences and a mineral pond and workshops and all this stuff, then we literally have to go eat at that restaurant or stay in those glamping tents or stay in a tiny house or book our yoga retreat that we want to host there because that's what has my family be able to do what we're doing. And that goes the same for if there's an organic bakery in your neighborhood or there's a organic coffee shop in your neighborhood and then you're like, "Oh, I like that place, but the parking's not that convenient and I just drive through Starbucks." Like literally you are driving Starbucks over what your values are. So I want to invite people to like, do I spend my money with my values or do I spend my money based on convenience and proximity and ease for myself? And then ask yourself, like, do you want a life where everything is so easy and comfortable in this one kind of way, but is not going to have a lot of freedom?
mhm,
Or do you want this life that is more freedom, but takes a little bit more effort in order to experience, um, I don't know, uh, a little bit more effort to experience resilience, to experience
mhm.
a world that we want because the 15-minute city is going to be very convenient. The 15-minute city is
Very,
going to be so convenient.
yeah,
So if you vote ongoingly for convenience, and I'm not saying I don't, I just ordered some cameras for my podcast studio from Amazon this morning. I'm not saying that I don't vote for convenience and
right,
essentially the control grid eventually.
right.
But I'm also growing a huge percentage, more than 60% of my family's food. And so I think I am voting with my dollars for resilience, uh, in a really profound way. And so those are the things that I just wanna, invite us to think about. And we are in a agrarian collapse. Farms, we lost 170,000 farms in the last 8 years. So
Right.
170,000 in 8 years, you can do the math, that's more than 200,000 farms a year, and that's 1 in 15 farms in America. If we had lost 1 in 15 hospitals in America in the last 8 years,
Mhm,
we would be freaking out. I would argue that farms are more important than hospitals. I would argue farms existed prior to hospitals and that it's more important. We have to prioritize agrarian society. Like if we don't
mhm,
want to live in 15-minute cities, and there is a agenda at play to corral us out of nature and into these high density populations and leave nature alone, as if that we are a plague or a pestilence on nature, but we are not. We are meant to interface with her. You belong here, and you are meant to
Mhm.
be the best cell in the body that you can be. And so, are you being the best cell in the body that you can be? And that is the question, and that is what we have to ask ourselves.
Mhm. Yep. Well, you wrote a new book that gets into a lot of this. It's called
Yes,
Debunked by
ma'am.
Nature. It's not out yet, but I did get a pre-order, which I'm excited. I think it's what released. Is it released
September
early?
25th, but you can order it right now,
Yes.
debunkedbynature.com. Another way you can support my family. If you want to buy it, you can even buy it on Amazon if you want free shipping. Or you can buy it from the publisher at debunkedbynature.com. But buy it for every one of your liberal friends, and not liberal conservative in like Trump Kamala kind of conversation, but like those of us who still are in conversations that are causing division, um
Mhm.
and infighting, and those of us who want to come together for humanity and want to remember our purpose. And I'm saying that's conservative. That's to conserve us, to conserve the family, to conserve our children, to conserve our soil. Um,
Right.
and so,
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear more about it. I have a ton of questions about your book specifically, but I think it would really serve the listeners well if they got a glimpse a little bit into your past, a little bit of your story, how you went from a vegan chef in LA to being a regenerative farmer now in Texas. Can you pull back the curtain a little bit on how you went from that to this?
yeah, how does someone go from a vegan chef in Los Angeles to a Texas cattle rancher or hog farmer? Like what makes that transition happen? That is a great question, and the answer is really simple. It's nature. So,
Mhm.
I am a studier of life. And I truly believed that the vegan restaurant was the path forward. I'm embarrassed to say, but I understood that my understanding at the time was that not eating meat was better for the climate, was better for my health, and was causing less death. And that made so much sense. Like it was a heartfelt place that I was in for that is what I thought was important. And so I believed that that was truth. And it was truth to me as much as you could even imagine that it was truth. And so when I, in 2013, heard a Graham Sate TED talk that my brother told me about, it really broke my mind about cows are not the problem, and food waste is way worse than cow farts or cow burps or cow patties. And so when you start to think about it, that started to break my mind a little bit. But I was
Mhm.
still deep in the 2013. I'm deep in the vegan restaurant thing. I'm still opening more restaurants. I'm still believing for every meal I serve, I'm saving an animal.
I mean, you had several
Oh, these were
successful vegan
huge.
restaurants.
When I say I was gonna sell my restaurant for 25 to $31 million, you have to get these are big, successful restaurants doing top line sales of 5, 6, 7 million a year. And in 2020, we were set to do 9 million in one location, based on first quarter trajectories.
Mhm.
Quarter trajectories couldn't uh, have predicted all the Fauci stuff, and all the bureaucracy. So, this is not like a little hole in the wall vegan restaurant. This is full bar. We own a brewery. We're brewing our own beer. So in 2013, I'm still only with two restaurants, but my mind is thinking, wow, the possibility of having my food scraps. So the first thing I learned was like about soil and that how soil can mitigate climate change. And I put quotation marks around the climate change. But that was the first thing I got opened my mind. So I started trying to buy a farm, trying to buy a farm, trying to buy a farm. My husband was undocumented. There was no way to get a loan. Eventually, a man named Mr. Meyerstein. He let me do owner finance. And so because of that, we were able to get a farm and we start bringing all the food waste from the farm. We start making compost. We start growing avocados for the ranch. So then the soil's terrible there. And I'm like making the compost, and the compost is terrible, just vegetables from the restaurant. So my dad's like, "Oh, you need a cow to set off you need the poop from the cow to make the compost good." So then I'm like, "Well, can't I just buy fertilizer?" So I start calling to find out what's in your organic fertilizer. Where does it come from? Oh, it's blood meal. Well, where's the blood meal coming from? Oh, JBS, like slaughter facilities. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So organic fertilizer is just made out of conventional cow blood. So I let me call another company. Oh, where's your chicken? The main ingredient in your organic fertilizer is chicken poop. Oh, okay. Where is it coming out of? Oh, we get it out of Tyson facilities. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just conventional chicken poop is organic fertilizer. And then, so, I'm looking into these different things on bone meal. It's the same thing. It's coming out of the death system that as a vegan, I'm anti this death system. And so
Mhm.
I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I thinking? Like, what is vegan food? And that doesn't, so then I decide to get a cow because then I can know that I'm treating the cow good, and then I can get her poop and I can mix that with all the compost coming from the restaurants, and I'm
Right.
gonna have this amazing soil. So this is awesome. I'm still gonna have a vegan farm. Don't anybody worry. Vegan farming is definitely gonna be a thing, said the naive Mollie. And so I get this cow from my dad. She's already bred. Her name is Una in 2018. Una has a baby. Una makes so much milk. She's a Normandy cow. She's meant to be a milk cow. And so we're milking off the excess milk because her udder is crazy shaped. It like the bottom half of her udder is almost to the ground. And so the calves can't milk those ones without pulling on
Mm.
her nipple up. And so we were milking off the back udder. And I'm breastfeeding my baby, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, look at how good I'm just breastfeeding my baby so long. And this is amazing. This really gold that I'm feeding my baby. And then my son wants some milk, and I'm opening a Tetra Pak from Costco to give him oat milk because I'm a good vegan. And there's milk in the fridge from Una in glass quart jars or half-gallon jars. And I'm thinking, how could if my breast milk is gold, I'm sitting there with the baby breastfeeding, getting the toddler the milk, and I'm like, if my breast milk is gold, like perfect immune system support, blah, 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 how in the world could Una's be like pus-filled, cancer-causing death? Doesn't make any sense. So I started integrating raw milk into our diet. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. And there was so many things. And if you buy the book, you're going to see all these relationships to death, all this stuff that happens where I have to shift my whole idea about death. But the end result is I realized that death is something that each individual wants to avoid. Like that is our nature because we want to survive in the same way that we want to reproduce, right? And so the drive for the human race to keep going, the drive for the cattle to keep going, the drive for the squirrel. Everybody's going to reproduce and everybody's going to die. And everybody individually is going to avoid death. But interspeciesly in nature, nobody really cares about another animal if it's going to die or not. Like a lion does not think about the gazelle's child and that bond and the relationship.
Mhm.
And so humans, because we have a compassionate heart, we have twisted some stuff that is just totally normal from nature. We've twisted it into a very disgusting meat system that should be revisited and needs to be reformed. I am no way am condoning the Smithfields and the JBSs of the world. That is a disgusting system that thrives on suffering. But the idea that we should not eat animals is also a totally made up thing. There's no indigenous cultures that have ever chose for that, even in the tropics where there's plenty of year-round food that's not meat. This is just not something that we do. And so through that realization that death and life are two sides of the same coin, I realized that there is no food without death. to be alive is to be on the backs of death. I'm sitting here in a studio that is, there's a wood table, and this table is made from trees that died, and the trees ate microbiology, and the microbiology ate
Right.
animals, and the trees dropped the leaves and dropped that, and then they fed the squirrels, and then the squirrels died and fed the soil. And like this whole thing, even a tree is consuming death. Even
Yes.
grass is consuming death. And so this idea that I could have a plate that had broccoli and potatoes and some kind of protein from beans or legumes, and that I would have less death on that plate was a lie. And when that broke open for me, it really broke me open in my mind and my heart to be able to see all these other lies that were in the space,
Mm, mhm.
that about racism, about gender, about abortion, about comfort, about body positivity. And so all of these are chapters in the book where I take these ideas in modern society and I say, does it make any sense in nature? Is it real? Because God's design is perfect. And we actually don't need to try to outscience or outsmart God's design. It's actually for us to co create with Him and take our place as the keystone species rather than trying to outsmart him and outdo him. It's for us to say grass with bovine creates microbiology that creates healthy soil, that creates more water infiltration, which creates healthier aquifers. Okay, how can I move my cows every day just like the bison moved in the past? How do we co-create with him? And how do we remember we belong here? And I believe that we think we don't belong here. And there's so much despair in our society, so much disconnection, and people feel that they they are so depressed. They think they're in the wrong body. They feel all this disconnection. I believe that is that we have an industrial microbiome, that the Lord has created this creation that is perfect. And when you look at healthy soil and a healthy gut, it's 73% the same DNA. And so we are meant to live of the soil and with the soil. Like you said, everybody needs to be outside. And when we have disconnected, and it starts from in the hospital birth and with um, all of the C-sections and then formula fed and then industrial food system, that we are not having the microbiology that is a little piece of God's creation inside of us. And so that expression, trust your gut, go with your gut feeling, that conversation emerged because we had this piece of creation inside of us, our second brain that was directing us in alignment with the whole. But we no
Yeah.
longer have that. This industrial microbiome has us feel disconnected, like we don't belong, like we don't fit in our own body. And it's not just about transgender. Look at the epidemic of plastic surgery that we're having, where people are literally just plastic surgerying themselves to be some version that you can't even look at without feeling distracted. Like, how can you connect with someone's soul when their face is all crooked from so much implants and puff stuff inside of it? And so we feel like we don't belong. We feel like we can't we don't recognize ourselves. And that's because we're disconnected, not
Mhm.
because we need more fillers or we're born in the wrong body or we need Ozempic. Like, we need soil, or we need SSRIs. Look, what's the statistic? I don't know what it is, but it's like 1 in 50% of adults are on SSRIs. And literally every study that studied putting your hands in the soil versus an SSRI, connecting with the soil is a better mood enhancer than any drug out there.
Oh my gosh. I wish I could just, if everybody could just go outside in the morning and put their bare feet on the soil every single morning for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You're right. They would have so much reduction of symptoms, disease, mood issues,
I
sadness.
sit outside and watch the sunrise. I did not this morning because my sleep all got messed up with waking up twice in the night with babies and other stuff. But I get up every morning before the sunrise. I my cup of coffee. People that think coffee is bad, they might be right, but I'm still a coffee drinker. Um, and I sit with my organic cup of Ruta coffee and I look out at the sun rising and I envision my mitochondria DNA waking up as the sun and the soft sunlight comes over the
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
mountains. And so I believe that there is value in being outside.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
believe there's value in hard work. I believe there's value in being uncomfortable, that we grow and like, think about when you've been in a relationship. Sorry that coffee went down the wrong tooth.
You okay?
Yeah,
You love this topic. You're so excited to just keep talking about it.
I am so excited. But think
I
about
love it.
if you're in a relationship and everything seems like it's going great, there's no pressure to grow or be better, right? Because it's like, oh, everything in the beginning when you guys are just like so in love and da da da. But then as issues arrive and different people's feelings of intimacy are not being met and people are not feeling seen, it's in that pressure that we grow to be better people, right? It's not in the love, we're so in love phase that we become better. It's in the after the honeymoon phase. Think about going to the gym and using your muscles. Under pressure, your muscles are better and stronger. Under
Mhm.
pressure, human beings are better and stronger. And that is what we want to remember. That is what we have to think about, is that we have created a life where we are so comfortable, we are not under pressure, but we are used to, for thousands of years, we have been under pressure to feed ourselves, to hunt, to be completely strong. And because we've been under pressure for so many years, the problem is that we now create pressure because we're sitting in playing video games and doing watching porn and have making money with Bitcoin or whatever. And life isn't hard in the way that we've experienced it to be hard for thousands of years. So we create these other pressures, and these other pressures look like mental illness or these stresses that are not real because we are used to being under stress. We're accustomed to being under stress in the hot sun, walking, working. I mean, think about, we all pay to go to a gym to work out. And that's crazy because there's so much calories that could be used in growing food or being outside, moving hay. Like, I could really use some weeding. People, squats, you just weed in a greenhouse. That's like Bikram yoga plus squats because it's 100 and something degrees in the greenhouse this time of year. It's super moist and super hot, and you're getting squats in. Like, why not come to the farm and help me weed rather than go to the gym? And we eat food that's so much calories in it, and then we go pay to run in place to burn the calories. This is where we're at as humanity. We've literally forgotten. Oh, there's my husband. We've literally forgotten how to be someone that knows how to do anything physical in the real world. And because of that, and I'm not saying we shouldn't go to the gym. Nobody should use this as an excuse to not go to the gym. But is there a better use of your calories? Is there a better use of calories in, calories out than running in place?
Well, and I think any category we pick, food, movement, spirituality, politics, family, relationships, et cetera, we as a society have been so removed from nature's intent. And so for us just to get back into that original rhythm is healing in and of itself. And it's really that simple. And I think because it's so simple, people overcomplicate it. We don't need all of these biohacking tools. We just need the rhythm of the sun rising and falling. We don't need to um, be making all this extra stuff up to make it harder. So you're so right. It really is just following nature's rhythms and being willing to kind of get outside of some people that's uncomfortable, but the real healing is getting reconnected back to nature. So, Molly, let me ask you this. So, your light bulb moment was looking at your cow Una, opening up a bottle of oat milk, and then this light bulb moment happened of, oh my gosh, like I'm disconnected from nature in this moment. Why I'm trying to be connected to nature. So, this was your light bulb moment. What happened then after that to change everything with your vegan restaurant?
Well, at first, I'm no dummy, so I thought we're gonna sell these restaurants. I've grown them. I'm not gonna just throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like I put 15 years into this, and there's people that still believe this is a passionate path forward for them. So let me sell it to somebody that's moved by this movement, and
Mhm.
then I can go on to do something that's authentic for me. So we started the process of getting a firm to market the businesses and sell them, and then these kind of bigger 25-30 million dollar deals take some time, and so then I did meetings, and then there was due diligence, and then this all took time.
Mhm.
2019, the end of 2019 going into 2020, it looks like we have a deal. I have to meet these specific measurable goals. We're crushing it. Like all I need to do is last quarter of 19, it's like off the charts numbers. First quarter of 2020, best quarter I've ever had. So it's looking like we're closer to this 31 million. Like all I have to do is have a regular quarter for 22nd quarter of 2020, and we're going to close this deal. But instead the deal just disappeared because we got closed for indoor dining for 2.5 years, and there was no money to invest in hospitality under these circumstances. And so the deal disappeared, and the bureaucrats stole 15 years of my effort in building this business with a stroke of a pen, with things that didn't even make sense. There was no science behind it. 6 feet of social distancing, no indoor dining, all
Mm,
of these things, they crushed the small business. And we can see that California didn't have better outcomes. It had slightly better outcomes in certain areas, but those uh, really had to do with health and wellness overall. Like Los Angeles had some better outcomes than,
right.
say, Houston, but the overall metabolic health of people in Los Angeles is better than Houston because it's a culture of you have to be healthy. Like literally, there's just if you're not buying a $25 smoothie at Erewhon and wearing Lululemon pants with nothing and a tank top, like you're not crushing it in Los Angeles. So, people are just metabolically more healthy. They spend more time outside in the sun. So that was slightly better in some areas of California, but statistically overall, the whole state's no, like didn't do, there was no like, oh my God, California was shut down for 2.5 years, and Texas opened up after 3 weeks, and Texas had billions of deaths, and California did it. That's not what happened at all. And so we literally closed down and destroyed business. And what they're not counting in the deaths in California, the overall death rate is higher in California than many other states. Alcoholism and murder and
Mm,
spousal abuse and all these things went up because people were stuck at home, and there was despair, there was drug use and alcoholism, because if you had a business and you're supporting your family and you're the matriarch or patriarch of your family, and all of a sudden someone with the stroke of a pen tells you you're no longer
yeah.
essential, you're no longer essential. And so and your family eating is no longer essential.
Yeah.
The despair was very high. And so when you look at that, we recognize that there was a net gain of death in these states that did this. And there was a huge transfer of wealth from people like my family, uh, combined in my family between my father's restaurants and my restaurants. I think we lost like 14 restaurants total.
Wow.
And so it was it and, I guess we should have thought as a family not to all be in the same industry so that if something like this happened, we could
Mm.
help each other. But unfortunately, we didn't. And so what ended up happening was multiple, um, family members lost everything at the
Yeah.
same time. My brother his restaurant, my dad lost their restaurants. I mean, they have a few left still, but and I lost all of my restaurants.
So, with your restaurants,
Yeah,
were you already losing them by the time you wanted to bring meat onto your vegan menu?
I'd already lost 3 at that point. I'd already closed 3, and I'd closed Culver City, and I'd closed Agora Hills, and I'd closed the Cloud Kitchen, to go only version, and I had only Echo Park and Pasadena left at that time.
And so how did the vegans, though, react to you bringing meat? Was that just, like, the last straw?
It was the last straw. They feel like they put me out of business, and I don't even care if they feel that way, really. Like, it was my last attempt. So we were losing money, we were bleeding money, and I was putting in money from my own, sale of my house, and I and people can't even understand. I have some trolls on the internet that are like, "I don't understand. What do you mean you don't have an income? What do you mean?" You know, just like so nasty. And meanwhile, they all work in jobs. I'm sure they've never been an entrepreneur. They have no idea what it is to work without an income for
Mhm.
long periods of time, trying to build something and
Right.
maybe working some other side job to get it going. And um, this is was catastrophic to my family and whatever, but I thought instead of just and I was wrong. I should have just closed the restaurants in 2023, probably. I should have just closed the restaurants in 2023, looking back. But I don't know because it also positioned me as a thought leader in the space around regenerative agriculture, and there might be some other benefits that I don't know about, but we just continued to lose money, and I thought, well, the vegan concept has no integrity. I think that seed oils are bad for you. I think that, you know, processed food is bad, and I'm serving this food that I once thought was healthy, and it's not healthy. Now I don't believe it's healthy, so maybe the reason the restaurants are not doing good is because it has no integrity with my personal values. And I have
Mhm.
always been a believer, like, when I started Sage, I was passionate, that was my personal values, and so I thought maybe I just need to shift in alignment with my values, what I believe God wants us to do, and then we will be more aligned. But, I didn't that didn't work. Uh,
Mhm.
so we still lost those last 2 restaurants. We closed during the fires in January of this year.
Mm.
But it was I would be in a way better situation if I hadn't done that because I ended up having to sell all my stocks, my Bitcoin, my life insurance to pay the final payroll and final taxes. And I'm still have collection agents coming after me,
Mhm. Yeah.
for restaurant bills.
Mhm. Well, what you said about being in alignment, I believe that you now falling into what you feel is true for you now, it will all come back to you in the most positive way. I believe that. It reminds me a little bit about how I was a conventional interior designer working on luxury homes. But when I had this conviction that we're using synthetic materials, plasticizers, every home is off gassing VOCs and chemicals, and eventually I got sick from my own conventional design practice, not realizing fully at the time that I just wasn't I mean, design and builders are not taught that there are safer natural ways to build homes. And so I no longer could align. Just like you were saying, I could no longer align in the conventional interior design and build world. And so I was really I was propelled essentially to start a practice where we're aligning and mimicking nature in every way possible with materials and methods and applications. But Molly, like sometimes that alignment, it can start to kick in later. And so so as you're saying that, I mean, I'm just speaking that into fruition too, and I believe that for you, that despite the the trials and the traumas of it all, like, because you are now literally vibrating in a pure alignment with God, with your vision, with your family, and your work now, I mean, I trust that that will have a an abundance for you guys.
I am joyous. I have faith and I stand in radical faith, and I am joyously expecting that flow of abundance to start any day now. And I'd like to let your listeners know that we still are raising 265,000 more dollars to finish the brewery, which is going to be the first glyphosate-free beer. I had a brewery in California. We were in Whole Foods and
Yeah.
everything. So if anybody's interested, it wouldn't just be in the brewery. You'd be part of the restaurant and all the hospitality, the confluence, the festivals, all of that. You'd be part of the whole Sovereignty Ranch hospitality branch, and we
Mhm.
would love someone to come in and be that final investor. We have $500,000 of brewery equipment sitting here, and I need that money to finish the plumbing and the electrical and the tank underground, which is not
Mhm.
exactly a septic tank. It's probably more information than anybody needs, but that's the things that we need to do, and the water filtration system. So we're really open to someone coming in and helping us finish this brewery, and it's going to be the grain is going to leave right from the mash tank and go right to the dairy cows and make raw milk, and so it'll be a all closed loop system where the waste from the brewery turns right into feed, which then turns right into soil right here on site without having to go anywhere.
Mhm.
And I realized that we've always have these breweries where the brewery is somewhere and the beer has to leave the brewery to sell, or the kombucha, which we're very good at as well, that has to leave to go to be sold somewhere. But the grain has to be shipped in, and then it has to be shipped out to either a
Mm.
landfill or to feed livestock. But in this case, it can stay right here on the property. The beer will leave. Some of the beer will stay and be sold here in the restaurant on property, but the grain doesn't need to be shipped out. It doesn't need to be trucked and all of that. It can turn into soil right here. And
Mhm.
so that is going to be part of the whole closed loop. We're going to only use American regenerative farmers. And so there's not going to be any glyphosate in the beer. And we're going to do our alcoholic kombucha like we did in Los Angeles, as well as our beer program. And so we'd love someone to come in and be that partner. If
Looking for investors.
anybody out there wants to do that. And then the other thing is, when is this gonna come out? When is this episode gonna come
I'd
out?
love to get it out next week.
Awesome. So the end of this month, we're doing a Food is Medicine conference on the ranch. And Lauren was just telling you guys about her experience at Confluence. I just want to invite you to have a similar experience, but this is going to be the conversation is going to be around food is medicine. We're having Will Harris from White Oak Pastures. We're having Logan Duvall, who cured his son of stage 4 cancer with local food. He realized that local food creates coherency in the body.
Mhm.
Doctors like Dr. Ben Edwards, who left the system because he realized that you are the cure, and he's does this amazing talk, and he has a practice and a podcast called You Are the Cure. Courtney Swan from the Real Foodology podcast is going to be here. It's an amazing group, and you can go to eatyourhealings.com or go to my website sovereigntyranch.com and buy tickets. And if you want a discount, I have a Mollie 10 to get 10% off. Mollie, Mollie 10. Um, the number 10. But it's going to be connecting with nature, eating food from the land, listening to these amazing lectures. And in between those lectures, we're going to do butchery and bone broth making and sourdough bread and
So
really
awesome.
amazing things. And so I just want to invite people to come. and be with us, and also just support the vision that we are doing with my family. And it's totally kid friendly, and the kids tickets are only $50, and there's a kids tent, and we're going to have a bounce house, and the kids are going to get to collect eggs and milk cows and all that stuff.
Well, what I loved about my time at Sovereignty Ranch was how kid-friendly it is. I mean, you guys have games and playgrounds. I mean, let's be real, like, a kid is happy with it climbing a tree, but you guys had all these extra things as well. And your food, there is an energetic difference. So, for maybe a listener who has never had, regenerative food, you quite literally feel different when you're eating it and after you're eating it. And your food, it does the same thing. There's a frequency to it. Obviously it tastes different. I mean, every year my husband and I, all we need is a fourth of a cow, and it takes us like 6 months to go through. But the local cow that is regenerative in nature, it's the best steaks you will ever have on the planet. Like,
I
it just
agree. I
tastes
agree.
so
And
good.
if people wanna buy, we have beef boxes and pork boxes. We also have just a farmer's box that has beef, pork, lamb mixed up. But we would love to support you guys in that way if you wanna order any meat, or if you just wanna order my tallow face cream, or,
Mhm.
um, any of our other products, chapstick, and
You
so
have a
many
whole
different
farm
things.
store.
Yeah, we have a
Like,
whole farm
you
store.
have spices, you have produce, freshly picked, you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
jerky, yeah, you had, a lot of skincare items. I mean, you have a whole ranch store, and I actually went and bought several things before I got on the airplane back to South Carolina as just little goody things for my friends and family. But, like, Sovereignty Ranch is a whole experience, Molly. It's a whole experience. So if there is a listener, you gotta go hang out for a few days, stay on site. Food is there, the brewery's there. I mean, you don't even have to leave. I never left. Like, people went to the grocery store during confluence. I never left. I had everything I needed right here.
Never leave. I literally never leave the ranch. This is gonna sound crazy, except for on Tuesdays when we do all of our deliveries.
Yeah.
I rarely leave the ranch. The month of July uh, the month of July, I left the ranch every day because we fed 4,800, flood victims and
That's all.
first responders that were, um doing flood work. We're still putting up displaced people, and we're still putting up first responders, and rescue, teams. And so you can also go to my website and donate if you'd like to help feed and house these people that we're putting up that are displaced or are here, rebuilding, displaced people's homes. But I say that to say I left every day, multiple times a day, because the Cajun Navy or different church groups would give me a geotag and say, like, our cadaver dog team is here. There's 6 people, drop off meals here. We have 27 people here. They think they found a body. We're excavating. And they would give me these geotags, and I would deliver lunches to all of these geotags in the riverbed so that they could keep working and not have to leave and come
Amazing.
back, which in a rural time, that's like 2 hours of the day to leave and come back and
Yeah.
get food. And so I did that for the whole month of July, and I did that for lunch and dinner and sometimes breakfast. And so I was driving nonstop, and it was crazy because I was thinking I never leave the farm except for Tuesdays. I make deliveries to San Antonio, Kerrville, Helotes, and Bernie around me, CSAs and orders. And so I just think it's so interesting that I've created this life where I don't really need to leave. I have everything that I need. And of
Mhm.
course, we sometimes go to the grocery store, and Tuesdays I go to Costco and get some things that we can't grow
Mhm.
here and stuff like that. But I really rarely leave the ranch because we have everything we need. I don't need to take my kids to the park. There's a park here. I don't need to take my kids to school. We built a little schoolhouse here. It really is an extraordinary community, and I think that just being here lets people be inspired about other things that are possible.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and your friends come to you for conferences. I mean,
Yes.
you literally do not have to leave. So, Molly, can you give the listener a brief lay of the land of your land? Like, tell us everything that you have, what you're working on.
Yes, we have 40 beds on the property, and they're divided between tiny houses, modified shipping containers, and modified shipping containers, and um what is the uh and glamping tents, like that. So there's the glamping tents that you stayed in, which we brought in for Confluence, and we have a great partnership with Good Life Glamping. And then we have some permanent like safari tents that have air conditioning and have a platform, and they're off the ground and
Yeah,
all of that.
bougie.
So there's tiny houses, shipping container, and then those glamping tents. There's some modified like shed type buildings that are like tiny house somewhere between the shipping containers and the tiny houses. And then we have 3 farmhouses, we call them, and they are brand new manufactured homes that are 3 and 4 bedrooms. So if you wanna come out with a group or a family or a birthday party, those are perfect, and they're pretty inexpensive for how like, we have a 4-bedroom house called Live Oak on our website, you can look at it. It's actually blocked actually till November because there's people staying in it that are helping rebuild. Hearts and Hands Rescue are there, but and it was Omaha First Response there before. But for example, that's a 4-bedroom house for 200 and something a night, and it has 7 beds. So there's like so much a
Mhm.
big group could come and you can swim in the mineral pond. But we have other houses that are 3 bedrooms with 5 beds that are, $200 a night. And so it's the price of a hotel room, honestly. And you
Mhm.
get to have beautiful hotel room type experiences. There's there's organic cotton sheets and down comforters, and we don't use Tide or any kind of smell. Everything is no scent and eco
That's a given.
friendly. What?
That's a given.
That's a given. Well, I don't know. Some people might not know. I hate staying in Airbnbs because I get sick from all the and even just cleaning the house from some of the people that were staying from that are getting to move back into their houses. It's crazy, like the smell we're like airing out houses, and because the
Uh,
laundry and cleaning supplies if you're not used to them, they're so intense, at least for me. And but for people that are used to them, they don't even smell it. They don't even smell like, I don't like to hug someone that uses Tide because it gives me a sore throat, and they think I'm being exaggerating, but literally, I think if you're not used to that smell, it impacts how you feel.
it's part
And
of the
I get a
programming.
tickle in my throat and my tongue gets numb,
Mhm.
and my dad always says that I'm the canary in the coal mine. If I start to feel that, it means there's some chemical. It's not good for everybody. I'm just more sensitive to it, than everybody else. But anyway, so there's those houses. There's this beautiful pond that has 22,000 parts per million of magnesium. So, and it has bentonite clay. You can do like clay smearing all over your body and detox, and it's healing. I know people that come just from San Antonio. I have a friend, Rena. She likes to come and dip her knee in the pond, and it brings the inflammation down. And then we have paddle boards and kayaks that you can do in the pond. We have, a slack line and a kids play area. We have a yurt, and then we have a conference room. So if you want to do an offsite, you want to do a conference, we have a conference room that's for 300 people. We have a yurt that's like for 50 people. So we have different price points based on what you're trying to do. We'd love to host any kind of yoga retreats, offsites, business retreats. You could do a gathering of interior designers that are wanting to be more in the space of natural stuff. You
Mhm.
guys could do a gathering here. We've had all
Yeah.
different kinds of gathering. We've had brands that have a lot of brand partners that do like influencing for them, and they've come and rented the whole property and brought all their influencers out, and they have all these different houses with different kitchens and different
Fun.
locations, and they're able to create a year's worth of content in a week with all these different brands, and also get their different influencer I mean, with one brand, but get all their influencers to, like, co-create stuff, together. But they're a brand kind of and then they brought in all these different brands that they sell because they have a huge audience, right? So they brought in all these different brands that are their sponsors, so to speak, and then they got their sponsors to co-create in, like, content together, which then created content for everybody, and they put everybody up for it was 10 days, and they put everybody up, and we fed everybody, and they got so much content in different locations because there's different kitchens, and there's tiny houses, and there's, outside and greenhouses, and restaurant locations. And so they were able to create tons of content and then use that to co-market with all of their sponsors that sponsor their brand. And so, or they're not a brand, they're like a influencer, right? And then they brought in all their brands that they do it. So there's so many different things you could do here. And we are willing to accommodate almost any budget. We're at this point, we're really open, and we can also do quinceañeras and weddings and birthday parties. And we're great at family reunions. And as someone who always gets relegated to the kitchen and to producing food at family reunions and doesn't get to just like hang out and drink coffee and sit by the pool with everybody else, this is a great place. To come and do your family reunion and let me be relegated to the kitchen to feed your family. And you can sit and play horseshoes and beersby and cornhole. And we create, we even, if people are interested, we create like questions to ask at the tables at dinner time. And so people get to
Love
stimulate
that.
different conversation, ask
Yeah.
somebody of this generation this, ask somebody of this generation this, and we create ways to connect. And games and everything for family reunions. So we'd really love to serve in any way that you may find that we could. And Sovereignty Ranch has the restaurant and as well. So it's a full restaurant, full farm store. So we really can just bring you into the farm experience.
Hmm. It's interesting. My husband's a permaculture designer, and so a lot of our practice revolves around regenerative principles, permaculture principles, building biology principles. And we had a neighbor recently walk by our watermelon patch and ask what it was. They had never seen a watermelon growing before, so they didn't know what it was. They asked if it was a pumpkin. And what really struck Ryan and I, my husband, was like, wow, like people are so disconnected from how their food grows. So they don't really know how it grows. They've never seen it grow before.
I
They
know.
just
And
know
then
it
they're
grows.
saying it's too expensive. And I'm saying, based on what? Like, what knowledge are you basing that watermelon's too expensive? Like, you've never seen it growing. So, how could you grow that watermelon for $10? We were selling watermelons for $10 at the farmer's market. People were like, $10? And I said, well, could you grow that watermelon for $10? They're like,
Yeah.
But sorry, I
People
cut
just
you off.
Well, no, you're good. People just expect, like, I guess people just expect the food that they see on the grocery store shelf as like the whole product in and of itself. They don't maybe fully comprehend that there are vines, there are roots. It involves all of the elements, right? And
Yeah.
it really struck me that wow, we have got to keep bringing people back to nature, showing them the original roots of where we have come from, much less our food. Uh,
And that's my whole thing here. I want to be the ripple effect. I want you to come here and go back into the world and be the ripple effect to transform our relationship to food, soil, and farming. Because, like I said earlier, we're in an agrarian collapse. We
mhm,
must support our farmers.
yeah. So your book, Debunked by Nature, Molly, if you had to pick one chapter that represented the book, which chapter would you select?
I don't think that's possible. It is a compilation of stories of how I came to this conclusion. And in this society, we always want to like pigeon things like, oh, you're far right, you're far left, you're a, you know, this and that. And it really spells out a transition from
Mhm,
profoundly held beliefs that I operated my whole life inside of, and then the wisdom to see that other things made more sense, and then to be willing to change my mind very publicly, and how that fallout came and went. And I think that it is a profound shift in one person's journey and one person's ideology. And I have the same soul and I'm in the same body. And so we have to remember that people's ideas are not them. And so we need to love people that we don't agree with and agree with people that we don't love when they say something that makes sense. And that was so real for me during COVID that I realized we've just, oh, they said something I don't agree with, so we can't like them ever. And you repost something that you agree with, and that person said something 6 weeks ago that you didn't agree with, and people attack you because you're platforming that person. And it's so weird because I'm not even talking about what they said 6 weeks ago. I'm just saying this one thing feels profound for me, and I want to share that and amplify that. It doesn't mean I agree with every single thing that that person has said. And
Mhm.
so it's this, our family members are not going to agree with us always. And people that we don't agree with and we think are wrong are going to say stuff that we do agree with. And I think it's interesting what's happening right now with the left and RFK. And I have much disappointment with this administration, but I'm very interested why people that have largely been supporting our food system being more healthy are resisting the things that RFK is doing as crazy and like, no, we want fluoride in our water. And people should have the right to eat red 40. Like, I don't even think red 40 is the biggest issue in the world, but for sure, I'm not going to fight to keep red 40 in our food. That's crazy. And so I think that this is an opportunity to have a coalition that makes a soft landing for farmers to transition the way that they're doing if we can remember that we're better together. And when you're in a group, an activism group, a freedom cell group, a truther group, a equity, diversity, and inclusion group, all of these different groups, I want you to ask yourself, is this conversation asking us to come together for a common good? Or is it asking us to other people, make people wrong, and separate? And
Right.
my experience is that on both sides right now, there is so much othering and making wrong, and there is so much that we can come together on. But I guess if I was to say one thing, it would be the pro life conversation, which is super tricky. But I think that both sides of the pro life and pro choice conversation could agree that reproductive rights, in the sense of the rights for our children to be able to reproduce, is important. And
Mhm.
so we could stop arguing whether we should be able to kill our babies or not and
Right.
start fighting against the chemical companies that are sterilizing all of us. What if reproductive rights meant my children were going to have enough sperm to reproduce, the right to reproduce? And what if reproductive health meant humanity is healthy enough to reproduce? That's what I think we could all agree on. And we could be fighting, instead of fighting for, I think you should be able to kill your baby, I think you should not be able to kill your baby. Okay, let's put that aside
Right.
because we're looking at full sperm collapse in Western nations by 2040. So maybe there's a more urgent issue than that. And so I would say that I think the ability for us to reproduce is the most important thing and the most important conversation. And I for sure was indoctrinated into a different conversation of waiting, live your life, do all this stuff. There's more important things than having children. But when you look at nature, all other species actually know there's nothing more important than the forwarding of your line, the forwarding of your species. And we have lost that. We are at a 1.6 replacement rate in all Western nations or less. We don't have a single Western nation that is at replacement rate. Just like, wrap your head. We do not have one. And so when we think about that, we have forgotten our purpose. Our purpose is literally, all these people have scratched, fought, warred, grown food, toiled in the sun, dug in caves, built houses, did all this stuff so that we could exist. And we're like, well, I really want to be able to go to Cabo every year and I want to be able to make money and kids are expensive. And like, think about what we're prioritizing after what was surrendered by generations for us to exist. we have no appreciation for what our ancestors gave for our existence. And so I would say if there's one thing, I would like humanity to remember what's important.
Yeah. And in your book, you cover the basis of regenerative ag, right? For listeners that are not familiar, I mean, it's woven throughout the whole thing, I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Well, it's my journey of coming to regenerative agriculture, so I talk about it throughout, but it's
Yeah.
not a farming book. So even though
Mhm.
it's being put out by a farming publisher, and we're in this conversation right now, like how exactly do we market it? Because it's a farming publisher, but it's not a farming book. It's a
Mhm.
book that focuses on humanity's role with nature and how
Mhm.
do we be the best cell in the body, and my journey of coming to what my natural place is as a wife, as a mother, as a human in the place of this world. Like, where do I fit in with God and nature,
Mhm.
my husband, my family? What is my role?
It's pretty bold of you to publicly change your opinion. And I look out in society and I see so many people, myself included in the past, to be fearful about changing one's opinion when that opinion has evolved. Because we are always evolving, we are always growing, and to think that someone must have one opinion the rest of their life is kind of insane. And it only makes sense that we are always adapting. Just like nature adapts, our own opinions are allowed to adapt and shift and change.
It it's interesting. So my mind got broken open about the before COVID about veganism, which then opened my mind to a lot of other things. And I've never been vaccinated, in full disclosure. My parents didn't vaccinate me. It's not was never I've barely ever been to the hospital. I did have one of my children in the hospital because I had a broken coccyx bone when I was a teenager and we didn't know it healed wrong and my son was stuck inside of me. And so they had to break my coccyx bone to get him out. So I had
Jeez.
to be transferred to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I go
Wow.
through this journey in my book as well. But um, I say that to say I've never been a medicalization person. I've always been a root cause person. I was raised in a family where my mom would be like, "Oh, you're sick. Your body's too yin. We need to go yang. I'm gonna make you some miso soup, and we're gonna, no, no bread and no sugar, and we're gonna move your body to the other side." And like this is, I was raised in that kind of environment.
Terrain theory versus germ theory.
Yes, and so when COVID started, my mind was already kind of broke open with the vegan thing and how it had been co-opted like it was a psyop, and it was had good intentions that then had been used to separate. And I think that what I want people to notice is so many things with good intentions are now being turned and twisted to have us be separated. And why do we need to do that? And so was I mean, think about me. I'm a liberal, hybrid driving, vegan chef in Los Angeles. COVID hits, but I'm anti-vax. All was born that I mean, I was raised in that conversation. I'm raised in the whole food conversation. I've been in the health food space. And so I had no interest in the mask. I had no interest in the vaccines. And I was married to someone who was undocumented when we got married, and it took many years. I think it was during COVID that he became American citizen because I couldn't be in the room. I remember that. And um, so I saw Tucker Carlson as the enemy, essentially. Like I thought he hated my children. He thought they were replacements for Americans or whatever. I'd
Mm.
seen little clips, and I really believed that that's who he was. And during COVID, there was literally nobody on mainstream TV that was validating my view that I shouldn't have to put on a synthetic mask and breathe in these particles of plastic, and I should take some experimental vaccine or mRNA product,
Mhm.
except for him. So I started to listen, and people
Mhm.
can say he's a partial hangout and CIA, like blah, 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 blah. I'm not even arguing. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is that I started to listen to a man that I thought was a racist, evil person who hated my husband and hated my children because someone would send me a little clip of him saying something that I held as a profoundly held belief that we don't need to be overly medicalized,
Resonated.
that resonated. So then I start to listen and come to find out Tucker Carlson's an environmentalist in kind of the way that I am, not
Yeah.
believing in the Green New Deal scam, but that like wild places are important and they are part of our connection to God, and that being in wild spaces has us have a more deep connection with God. And then he's talking about how the CIA was responsible for JFK's death at 8 o'clock on Fox News. And so then I'm talking to my liberal friends like, you don't think it's interesting that at 8 p.m. on Fox News, on like the most
The
mainstream
biggest
as
plot.
he's saying these things out loud. And and then when the Nord Stream pipeline thing happened, and I'm thinking, well, the Democrats are supposed to be the party of the environment. This is like a huge environmental disaster that seems like they co-signed at least and possibly helped with the operation. And and then the I was pregnant and the Ohio, the trains crashed, right? And he's talking about this environmental disaster, and the left media is like silent. And I'm so confused because my mind has him as the bad guy. And I
Clarity.
realize that he's not, that he's a profoundly patriotic father that's doing what's best for his family. Now, do me and Tucker agree on everything? No. And I'm very interested at some point in my life to have a conversation with him about immigration because I have a plan that I think would even resonate with him and that would take into consideration some things that he hasn't thought about because he's not ever had to run a farm or a hospitality business or a brick and mortar business of any kind that's like reliant on low skill. And I don't want us to use low skill as a, but on labor that needs to toil in the sun or in a hot kitchen, and how inept the American workforce is to do that at
Yeah.
this time. And so I'm interested, but but largely I saw him as a man who was sharing as he was changing his mind publicly,
Yeah,
and he
true.
was doing stuff, and that resonated with me. And I
Mhm.
remember that I became like a secret Tucker Carlson fan, and in my relationship with nature and watching what was happening on the farm and then listening to him about other things started to meld together. And so it was a combination. And then because I was looking at things about Tucker Carlson, other stuff was coming up in my algorithm. And all of these things contributed. And I would say, even like the very first chip was a PragerU video. Now, do I agree with all the things, many things PragerU puts out? I'm not in alignment, but they put out a thing about Native people and how we hold their land in trust. And so they can't ever build wealth because they're not allowed to leverage their land. And we don't hold anybody else's land in trust except for children and mentally defected, mentally disabled people. And so why are we taking an entire culture and holding their land in trust, which then holds them
Bless you.
in poverty? And
Yeah.
so this idea that just because someone says one thing that you agree with means you have to throw it out because they say other things you don't agree with is
Bingo.
crazy. And I think that we have to take little pieces of knowledge from everywhere, take it into our atmosphere, in our world, and say, do I agree with this? Does this resonate as true? And we don't have to co sign every single thing that someone believes. Just because you retweet something or you agree with someone or disagree with someone does not mean you agree with everything. Do you agree with your husband on every single thing? I don't. My husband and I do not agree on every single thing. So why would we think that anybody in the world are we going to agree on every single thing? And so I'm actually super grateful to Tucker Carlson
Yeah.
because he was brave enough in a time that nobody was being brave. And he was not only being brave, he was asking questions like, what distinguishes who's being brave and who isn't? And he's like, it's not on class, it's not on race, it's not on
Mhm.
education. Like, what is it in each of us that is, and he was investigating this publicly on television, on stage when he was talking, and it was fascinating to me, and I couldn't believe that it wasn't fascinating to other people to watch this his mind change, him to say, "Why did I promote the Iraq war? What was I doing?" For him to be having these realizations, the ripple effect of that was that I was brave enough to come out and have different conversations, and did he get eventually fired for having those conversations? Yes, and but I think that in the end, it was good for him anyways. And I watched a lot of people be brave. I watched Candace Owens be brave. I watched these people. And now the truthers are going to say, well, they're CIA partial hangout, blah, 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 blah. I, I don't really know anything about that. And I don't think we can pretend to know how entrenched the deep state is in the world. But I would say that those two people had a profound effect on my willingness to hear different people's ideas and then be willing to change your mind. And I think that if we don't have people in the world that are willing to publicly change their mind, then nobody will. And so there is a ripple effect. And I hope that my willingness to change my mind, my willingness to write this book that is very controversial and against most of what I was raised to believe, I hope that it gives other people the bravery to change their mind
Mhm.
because we've all been indoctrinated. And whether it was by our parent or by school or by programming, by television, by TikTok, we're all being indoctrinated. And we have to be willing to say, maybe that didn't make sense. It made sense at the time, but now I have new information and it does not make sense. And so I'm totally grateful to Tucker Carlson because he was profoundly intertwined in my waking up journey.
Mhm.
And so, and
Yeah.
I hope to one day have a conversation about immigration with him because that's the area that we still have some space between us. And not that I need him to come to my understanding or I need to come to his. I just am interested to talk to him from the perspective of someone in farming and in hospitality. And I have a plan that does secure the border, but also supports those industries. And I'd love to talk to him about it at some point.
Well, I bet you guys will share a beer together at the brewery on your farm. So,
I hope so.
well, I love your, what you might be calling controversial. I think it's really holistic in nature for all of us to take tidbits from opinions we might not agree with, from opinions we do agree with. I grew up homeschooled, so I was taught from a very early age to be a critical thinker. Just because someone is telling me to believe something doesn't mean I'm going to believe it. And I think as a society, we have got to learn to unlearn what we have learned and discern for ourselves. This is true for me, but this might not be true for my neighbor. This might be true for them, but that might not be true for that person. And that's okay. And I think that that is really what makes up a holistic person as far as beliefs and opinions. So I'm very excited for your book to come out because you get into your life, you talk about a lot of these avenues. And I think if someone is inspired by your life, I really want them to pre-order your book because it's available.
Stocking stuffers for everybody. Order it now and get it, give it to some of your friends. I want to say that we can't be fixed in our thinking or we won't grow and develop. And so thank you for having me on and platforming this conversation. And I'm grateful. And I just hope that people do pre-order the book. And I hope that people come to Sovereignty Ranch. And if you're interested in what I talk about, you're welcome to follow me on anywhere. Talk to Mollie on Instagram or I'm most active on Instagram, but I'm on X and other things, but I'm not as active. But it's all Talk to Mollie. So come join me.
But we might have to have you on another time where we can get into some more details about regenerative farming. I mean, there's so many nuanced subjects here. I mean, even people will just have to read your book about you having 4 babies between what, the ages of 37 and 45. Like that alone is such a paradigm shift for people and it's encouraging. Uh And all that's in your book, right?
Yes, it's all in my book, and I do think that, I'm so grateful that I was able to have children late in life, and I hope that people don't take it as, "Oh, Molly did it at that age, so I can wait." I'm saying that God blessed me in that way, but I was so close to being a woman that just lived alone and had some cats and some dogs and went through men as they suited me and then moved on, and God had a different plan for me, and I act in radical faith, and you'll learn about how my marriage came about, and it's an extraordinary story. And so I want to encourage people, and I'd love to come back on and just do an episode about soil and regenerative farming, and I would love to do that. So let's schedule it in the near future.
Yeah, well, I am honored to have all of these really off the cuff, yeah, verbalizations of where you've been. I think it's so valuable, and I think it paints a picture of how brave you have been and really just your audacious nature. And as we continue to tackle, you're tackling regenerative farming, I'm tackling regenerative design and building. I think we all are playing a really interesting piece to create the world we want, right? We intend to create this new world essentially, and we have a role to play. And sometimes it looks like us waking up out of our slumber of what we used to believe, what we used to think, where we used to align. And what Molly is saying is we have wiggle room to change, and that's
Yes,
okay. And it's welcome. So,
yes.
Molly, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you as well, and I would love to come back on. And I'm starting my own podcast. This is my new podcast studio. It's not quite done. Also love to have you on my podcast
Let's
as
do
I
it.
launch it. So I'll reach out about that as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Molly. And please follow her on social media. Molly is honest and you know what she believes. And in the age of authenticity, that is going to be the highest currency as we increase our discernment is are people being authentic? And Molly, she's one of the most authentic people I follow on Instagram and someone that I've had the privilege of meeting. So anyway, Molly, we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.